Welcome to Michigan Reimagined, a Spotlight podcast. And here's your host, Chris Buck.
So finding affordable housing is a crisis for many. Luckily, there are resources working to increase supply and assist those in need. And one of those resources has reached a significant anniversary in 2022. Here to discuss the mission of the Capital Area Housing Partnership is its Executive Director, Rawley Van Fossen. Welcome to the show, Rawley.
Thanks, Chris. Welcome.
So what is the mission of the Housing Partnership exactly?
Sure. Absolutely. So Capital Area Housing Partnership has been here in the community since 1992, trying to develop strong and diverse neighborhoods here across mid-Michigan. But we do that with a focus on homeownership, financial security, and really ensuring that there's a housing option for everybody here in mid-Michigan.
So what does the mechanics of that look like? What's the variety of ways that you help achieve that goal?
Sure. As you can imagine, the housing needs in not only our community, but really all around the world is great. Mm-hmm. And so what we try to do is tackle what housing issues mid-Michigan neighbors are focusing on or dealing with right now in our community. You know, I can share that nearly half of mid-Michigan neighbors in our community are burdened by the cost of their housing, whether they're a renter or a homeowner. You know, that means that there are folks spending more than 30% of their income on housing costs, such as those monthly payments, utilities, and so forth. So just one example of where we see a housing crisis in our community and try to offer a service that can give that neighbor some hope for the future, whether that's them being more stable in their home or finding a new opportunity.
Right. And is it just a lack of variety or a lack of volume or lack of quality?
Sure.
You know, what are we missing?
You know, when the pandemic first hit, something I shared with some fellow colleagues of mine is that the pandemic just shined an even greater spotlight on the housing crisis that our community is facing. So all of the above is something we're dealing with. There is a lack of inventory for newly built, whether that's apartments or single family homes. There's a lack of variety in those options, whether that's more large scale projects like an apartment building or something in the middle like a duplex or a quadplex. You know, we're missing all of the above, and we need to be working on all of the above to even begin making a dent in trying to provide mid-Michigan neighbors what they truly deserve.
And I've had some conversations in my private life with people who do that kind of work, and it just sounds like economically it's very challenging to build a new housing product that is a lower price point.
Absolutely.
You know, and currently right now we're in this microcosm of I can't find people to do it anyway, so labor is really expensive. Every piece of material is either bogged down in the supply chain or is 50%, 100% more expensive than it was 2 years ago, right? Which is compounding the problem for new inventory to come on board, right?
Makes the job a little difficult, doesn't it, right?
Yeah.
To see a project pencil out is difficult right now for developers, whether you're a nonprofit developer like myself or you're even in the market rate development on the private side. The economics don't work. The fortunate thing on our end at the Housing Partnership, though, is that doesn't stop us. Because we're fortunate to be able to have partners on the government side, whether that's local cities, the state, and in some cases the federal government, who can come in and fill that subsidy or think of it that gap in where the economics of lumber supply or job supply might not always pencil out for somebody to go out today and build their own house and be able to profit off of it. We're relying on those partnerships to help fill that gap. And the gap is big right now. And the pandemic has definitely brought that issue full front to the construction market.
Well, to kind of dovetail into that, talk about how the partnership is governed and funded. I'm assuming nonprofit?
Sure, absolutely. So we're a 501c3 here in the community, and we're governed by neighbors here. Everybody in our board of directors, we've got 15 folks who serve on that board or live somewhere here in the mid-Michigan area. Not only are they neighbors, but they also have professional experience in the real estate world, whether that's on the legal side, the development side, the financial counseling side, the mortgage lending side. But then we also pride ourselves in being diverse on all other aspects of what makes a good nonprofit run. So that's wide geographic representation, wide age representation, and certainly representation across multiple different races and other marginalized communities. That's who governs our day-to-day, are your neighbors. And that's what we're proud for, because it separates us from others who are doing this line of work.
So you feel pretty comfortable that that group of 15 people with all that diversity are giving you the stories of the people.
I think so. And,
That's great.
we're proud to be sharing 30 years this year. That's the big excitement.
Right, 92. I did that math in my head. Yeah, 30 years.
And much credit goes to that style of governance. Really, since 1992, when we were founded in East Lansing, it was because a group of neighbors came together and wanted to preserve few of the historic neighborhoods, the Bailey neighborhood, the Chesterfield neighborhood, from the encroaching student rental market from the adjacent university, Michigan State. Those neighbors came together to say, we want to preserve our neighborhood. We want to ensure home ownership is still a legacy here in the city and still available. And so since 92, we've been taking that every step of the way. If there's not a program, a service, a new development that the partnership doesn't engage in, that doesn't connect back to what neighbors want.
Okay. So let's talk about the funding part, because you already kind of talked a little bit about how, local, state, and federal even monies can come in and kind of fill this gap. How do you raise money? I mean, is it do you have donations, fundraisers, or is it grants and
Right.
those kinds of things?
So the unique part of my job is in having the word partnership kind of being the last part of what our name is, means we rely on a partnership on every level of what we do. There's nothing done at the housing partnership that doesn't rely on somebody else outside of our network helping us along. And that directly relates to how we get funding and how we ensure the services and developments we do are fruitful. We're proud to say that we've got partnerships at every level of government. We're receiving direct dollars from the city of East Lansing, the city of Lansing. We're receiving direct dollars from Ingham County, from the state of Michigan, all the way up to the federal government through a variety of programs. Sadly, though, that's not enough. And so we do pull on, like a good nonprofit, the support of neighbors here in this community through private donations. We need all of the above because the housing crisis in our community currently is demanding all of the above.
Right. Okay. So your website has, I was blown away. I always do research and try to make sure I understand where this is all going. The amount of the drop down under programs. So I kind of hovered over programs and it dropped down almost to the bottom of my computer. I mean, there were maybe a dozen or more. Talk about the types. I mean, so we talked about, an audience listening for the first time to this point might say that you go out and try to court developers to build a $150,000 home that costs them $300,000 and you give them the other $150 to make it pencil for them and they build a home. But the community outreach and the education and the program and the financial stability is really a lot of the horsepower behind what you do, right? Absolutely. It's not just about creating more inventory.
Right.
It's about helping people. So talk about what you do.
It can't be just about the development. We take a holistic approach when it comes to this idea of what does housing mean for our neighbors. And everybody has a unique story. Everybody's at a different point in that journey of housing, whether you're a homeowner successfully in your house, just looking for the skill set on how to maintain, whether that's keeping up with your water heater, keeping up with your roof, or understanding the costs that those things may become years after years. Or on the get-go side, you might be looking to purchase your first home. And so you're in a completely different area. So at the Housing Partnership, we try to draw this circle around the idea of what does it mean to be housed? What is, first and foremost, what is it your right to be housed and have that access to housing? And then what programs and services can we create? And so we try to have something along every step of the way. We pride ourselves in being that one-stop shop for housing resources and development opportunities for mid-Michigan. And so to get specific, for first-time homebuyers, that may mean coming to our monthly homebuyer education class, getting the foundation of what it means to become a first-time homebuyer, making, in many cases, the largest investment you may ever make as an individual. On the more vulnerable side, it might be somebody who's facing homelessness today and reaching out to figure out what is that next step tomorrow to get a roof over their head, whether that's entering some of our shelter systems or some other type of diversion. On the other side, it could be folks who are already housed. Maybe they're renting a house or an apartment, or they're currently owning their home. But again, as I mentioned, they might need some of those resources to maintain that so they can continue that effort moving forward. So they might use our tool library. We're proud to say we've got over 300 tools that folks here in the community can rent for no cost to themselves. We're in the summer season, so our rototillers and our lawnmowers are the most popular items being checked out right now. But that's the idea behind the Housing Partnership, is we really want to be that one-stop shop because housing is a lifelong journey. Right.
And this is all free, all these programs and the services, and if people want to attend it sounds like there's a calendar, right? Yeah. So it's like, I want to go to this class or I want to go experience these things. And it's meant to be proactive I mean, I hate to use the word, but head held high, no shame. I mean, this is a resource that is built and funded to help you avoid bigger problems. So this is kind of where you probably want people to bury their pride, or not even like let that even enter their head.
Right.
It's like, this is a challenge for me.
Right.
There's a resource that's free. I'm going to go sign up and walk in with my shoulders squared and go get this information. Right.
That's certainly the hope. We get back to what brings us here today. What's that mission? And it's true to our heart that we believe every person in this community has that right to have that opportunity to be housed in a quality, safe, and affordable housing option. We've got work to do. And so that means that any client, supporter, stakeholder, or partner who's coming through our doors to engage with us, that there is no judgment. It's a judgment-free zone because everybody's story is going to be unique, and depending on what they're bringing to the table is going to be unique to them. And so we want to ensure that our services are going to be able to be tailored directly to that. We pride ourselves in being able to offer these programs at no cost to neighbors here in the community because they deserve that, because it's a benefit to us all. Ensuring that my neighbor next to my house here in Lansing is being successful, is staying current on their payments, is maintaining their home is going to be a benefit to me. I have an invested interest to assuring our neighbors in our community are successful.
Makes sense. Before I forget, tell us the website. We're spouting off all these different great programs. Sure. People are probably dying. How do I find these guys?
Absolutely. So you can get us on the web at capitalareahousing.org or any social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, by searching Capital Area Housing.
All right. And then the partnership part of this, two organizations kind of spring to mind. I think of the Land Bank, and then I think of MSHDA.
Sure.
So tell our audience a little bit about those two entities, and are they part of the partnership? It seems like you would align a little bit or coordinate with those two people as well. Critical
partners, both of them. And proud to say that we're partnering and continue to partner with both the Ingham County Land Bank and the Michigan State Housing and Development Authority. And so on the Land Bank, where they're unique, is they've got property. That's literally what the land banks are designed to do, is to ensure tax foreclosed properties are being thought of in a professional way to get back onto the tax roll. That's the land bank's purpose. And so we're proud to be able to partner them by taking those properties and hopefully being successful in putting a new house on that, or in some cases, a side lot, or maybe even a bigger development like a duplex and whatnot. We're getting that property back on the tax roll through a partnership with the land bank. And that's going to generate more tax dollars for the community that we're developing in, and so forth. And that helps because that's land that's out there that, again, I have no idea what the economics is. Does the land bank, if you have a project and the funding to build a structure on a vacant parcel of land that's off the tax rolls, do you automatically, you probably have to go through a process, but do they give you that land, or do you have to buy that land? How does that work? We do buy it from the land bank. And so there is a process to go through on their end, because they've also got a strategic plan on where properties are going to be developed and so forth. But it's about that relationship. And so it's engaging with them more than just once a year. And so I'm proud to say that not only is the land bank a partner, but the land bank's a friend to this line of work, so that when they see we get funding or they get funding, we come together to determine how can we partner together to ensure successful development, not just for that specific property, but then the folks who are living adjacent to it, and really then 30,000-foot view, the greater community as a whole. It's an invested interest for us to see that those properties get back on the tax roll. And does every county have a land bank? No, not every county in Michigan has a land bank. Proud to say that our land bank, I believe, is the second land bank formed here in the state of Michigan. Genesee County gets to coin the first. But no, we're talking about Ingham. And we're talking about Ingham here. Not every county has a land bank. There is a state land bank, and I believe they kind of pick up in excess where counties may not have formed a government land bank. But we're proud to say that we've got a robust land bank. It's got strong leadership and understands and sees a willingness to partner with nonprofit developers like us at the Housing Partnership. And how about MSHDA? I mentioned them. They're a statewide organization, right? So how do they fit in? MSHDA has to be at the table. They're our statewide department that focuses on housing. It's in their name. And so they're a critical partner for not just us, but anybody across the state of Michigan looking to develop housing. And even those developing commercial are going to want to have an invested interest in what MSHDA's priorities are, because you can think if you're developing something commercial, it's going to bring jobs, and those folks ideally, hopefully, want to live in that community. And so MSHDA, where they get to be key, is they can bring dollars to the table. As a statewide agency, they can leverage financial opportunities that may not be available at the local level. And so at the Housing Partnership, we're partnering with MSHDA just as much as the land bank on a daily basis in the funder role, because MSHDA is able to leverage a variety of tax credit programs and other grant efforts so that those developments that we're doing here at the local level can be fruitful, because it gets back to that gap. It's unrealistic to think anybody today in Lansing would go out and build a single family house. The economics don't work. As you mentioned, it costs about $300,000 today to build a 3-bedroom house in the city of Lansing. You'll be lucky to get that appraised for $150,000. So do the math.
Right,
Someone's losing $150,000. And so MSHDA's an opportunity to come to the table and say, we'll provide that gap. But there's a catch, and there's usually a catch with anybody providing that type of free money, and it's to ensure then who that opportunity gets made available. And that's really what makes our work unique and fun, is that we can then take that development, be fortunate through our partnership with the land bank and MSHDA and the financing effort, and say that that house is then going to be sold to a low-income family, so that we're preserving that opportunity for folks who may not be able to compete on the open market.
Got it. So you're the Capital Area Housing Partnership. I would imagine that there are similar, kind of equal but different organizations like yours all around the state of Michigan.
There are, and we can't do it alone. We're a part of a trade organization. We're a member of the Community Economic Development Association of Michigan, or CEDAM. I'm a proud member, and they really bring horizon to everybody else in the state that's doing this kind of work. So it's interesting for us to pull on folks like the Inner City Christian Federation out in Grand Rapids, or Community Housing Network out in Oakland County, to see what they're doing in their community, because the housing crisis is the same across the landscape on a 30,000-foot view. It helps us network professionally. But here locally, we're proud to say we're really that one-stop shop for mid-Michigan communities, is the Capital Area Housing Partnership.
Fantastic. I was curious because collaboration and best practices, and by definition, you're not really in competition with each other. So to hear about maybe a new idea or a new process, and I would imagine you advocate for legislation, and or
we have to.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So I got to tell you, this is fascinating, and I'm sorry it's taken so long for me to get you on the show, but reaching your 30-year anniversary, we've been speaking with the Capital Area Housing Partnership Executive Director, Rawley Van Fossen. Remind us of the website again where people can learn more.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. It's capitalareahousing.org.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining me.
Appreciate it.